Crash, where the hell you been? Haha. Busy, that's where the hell I've been. Hoi. Heyo people, I'm Crash Thompson and welcome to this review of the latest from Genesis Owusu, Struggler. I mean, even though I have just not had a lot of time for videos here lately, sorry about that. I absolutely knew I had to cut aside some time to talk about this, because if y'all have been watching my channel since the pandemic, y'all know I fuck pretty hard with Genesis. His debut, Smiling with No Teeth, made Album of the Year back in 2021, and y'all, that album basically got my ass through the last half of the pandemic, absolutely, and that nasty little burnout period I need to stop referencing. I absolutely adore Genesis as a performer. His beats were bombastic and all over the map. He was wildly experimental. He had an interesting little pseudo concept going on. The lyrics were pertinent and very hit to the center of your chest. Like, man, especially in the post-pandemic kind of world we live in today, Smiling with No Teeth still resonates pretty hard. So absolutely, when I heard a follow-up was coming this year, I knew I was going to be one of the first motherfuckers on it. And I can say, without burying the lead too much, yeah, this one is super duper strong too, in my opinion at least. It opens fantastically. Leaving the Light is this really strong, upbeat, energetic, kind of bouncy tempoed little jam. It's exactly the kind of song to help give the album some energy and some pep. Like, Genesis is really, really good at his high energy, high banger tracks, and this is a great one to open things up with. And then the album kind of deviates from that approach a little bit. The Roach, the following track, is much more like slinky and almost slimy. The much dirtier synth warbles and the kind of lower key, smokier percussion going on in that track really puts out a different but very interesting kind of vibe. And the track after that, Old Man, kind of carries that more distorted, kind of grungy sort of aesthetic. I love the chorus. There's an old man waiting in the sky just to fuck my life up. I mean, that's a mood, isn't it? Again, I'd say lyrically, Genesis definitely touches on some interesting factors here. This track in particular about the artistic process and how expressing yourself and being artistic as your main moneymaker, the kind of effects that can have on you and your psychology and your sort of general view of the world, and about how many different people you've got breathing down your neck when you choose that life. He's absolutely brilliant at putting that across, and I don't know, again, another solid track. And then from those two tracks, we go to See You There, which is almost like a AM radio, kind of light 70s soul feel, like the heavily mellotronic synths and the brush hit drum work just really lays down a much more easier, very, very mellow and relaxed kind of mood. The bass line on this track and the one after it are absolutely carrying the weight. Just that is that high grade low end. We love to see that. This track goes for more of like an Al Green or like a Curtis Mayfield kind of vibe. It is deliberately a throwback to that 70s chill kind of vibe. Again, that's what I love about Genesis. He tries a lot of different things. He usually plays with a lot of different soundscapes and different ideas on his records. And he's always pretty damn good at pulling off whatever he's trying to do. Like the first half of this record specifically just reminded me how great of a vocal talent Genesis is. The man can sing, he can rap, he can scream his fucking guts out, or he can give a very convincing, not artificial sounding falsetto. The man has such range and such talent. Not to mention, this is doing so much with so little on this album. A lot of the tracks on this feel much more streamlined. Everything is a lot shorter, I definitely have to say that. A majority of the tracks on this thing tend to hover around the 2 to 3 minute mark. A lot of these experiments and a lot of these songs are much quicker. They're much snappier. It's 2-3 minute little bursts. A few moments where they do flesh things out a little bit more, but it feels like the idea behind this record was to be much more kind of in and out. Whereas Smiling with No Teeth had a lot of spoken word elements and a lot of just fuck around and find out moments. That album just went crazy. That album did absolutely everything it thought it could get away with, and maybe a little bit more. This album, it feels more like it has a much more focused kind of purpose. It's much more goal-oriented. It's like, we're gonna hit this, we're gonna hit this, we're gonna do this, 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 give them the melody, give them the beat, leave them happy and satisfied, and make our exit quickly. Smiling with No Teeth was a pretty beefy 53 minutes. This one barely hits 38. So here's the thing, I'm of two minds of this, because as much as I liked No Teeth, I also wouldn't say it's an absolute no skip record. That album could get a little meandering in places. Again, its experimentation worked way more than it didn't work, but there were moments where I was like, all right, man, come on, can you get me to the melody here? This album certainly doesn't have that problem, not at all. But also, in a way, it also, because it's so much tighter and so much more, I don't know, almost restricted feeling in some respects, it's lean almost to maybe a small fault. If what you loved about the last Genesis record was its mind-meltier moments, there isn't quite as much of that here. Again, it's tighter, it's focused, it's much more melody-driven, much more chorus and sort of stick-out moment focused. It doesn't have that loose, lumbering kind of feel to it. This is a much more controlled machine of a record, if that makes sense. So in that regard, I do see where some of the older fans of his last record and some of his earlier stuff are maybe bouncing off this one. If that was the thing you loved about Genesis, it's still here, but there isn't nearly as much of it. And even I gotta admit, I do miss some of those wackier moments. But to me, this album also serves as kind of a proof of concept that Genesis Owusu can basically do whatever he wants and probably get away with it. Because again, even with the different approaches he's taking, even when he strips everything down, not necessarily to its core, but to something that is much more lean and much more just ready to get out and go. Like, even when he takes that approach, he's still able to really create some interesting sonic ideas, some damn fine melodies and grooves, and some absolutely killer bars. Like, man, this dude has got some spit, y'all. It's definitely a bit more cut and dry, but again, even under those kind of conditions, Genesis doesn't miss us for style, substance, and just fuck around and find out mentalities. There's a lot going on this record, even if it isn't quite the monster Smiling with No Teeth was. Like, this record definitely feels like it's got a bit more gravel under its fingernails. It's definitely trying to go for something a bit more harsh. Feels like it's an attempt to kind of strip things down a bit and see how much Owusu can do with very little. And the answer is, he can still pull off a lot. Though again, the lower key, the mellower, less blasty kind of affair, I don't know. Again, No Teeth was a mind-melting record. This one, it's just a very, very solid piece of experimental hip-hop. This record isn't maybe as ambitious. Well, I won't even say that. It's ambitious in a much different way, and I absolutely respect it. But at the same time, I also understand if you kind of bounce off this one at first, it's maybe not the experience a lot of us were expecting out of Genesis Owusu, but Genesis is still a very new artist. I feel like we don't have a full grasp on what Genesis is capable of, and I liked that this record kind of did something different and went out there and showed us what else this guy is capable of. Like, he doesn't just have one trick. This guy can do a lot. And I still feel like this was a very solid listen. And I would recommend, even if he did bounce off this one, give it time. Honestly, even Genesis's first record was a bit of a grower for me before it really clicked, but I really enjoyed my time with this. I feel like this one is absolutely going to keep growing on me the more I sit with it, the more cool stuff I discover under the surface, and I feel like it's gonna click with a lot of other people too. Or maybe not, but I don't know, dude. It's still a great listen. Genesis is still a compelling as hell performer. And man, he is definitely doing some of the most interesting stuff in hip-hop right now, at least according to my tastes. And I can't say one thing for sure, whether you dug this album or not, catch that live show. Oh my goodness, we saw him at Boston Calling earlier this year, and man, absolutely tore it up. So either way, I absolutely recommend that live show. I'm gonna give this one a strong 8, light 9. I really enjoyed this one, and I think I'm still going to be able to find a place for it come year ends. And that's the review. What did y'all think of Struggler? Were you feeling the vibe, or did you kind of bounce off this one? Feel free to let me know in the comments. I promise I am still working on videos, but again, I've had just a super duper unexpectedly busy last 3 weeks or so. Life stuff just blew up big time in a big way, but things are starting to calm down a little, and I plan on working on at least another long form vid. I want to get at least one long form vid out before the next FIMI in October, but again, life be like that, so we'll see. I'll keep you updated. Thanks again for watching. Always feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'm Crash Thompson, and I will see ya when I see ya.